Hello and welcome to the Right Network studio, and I'm joined this morning by Peter Hickey, who is the founder and president of Mals in Australia, where he's for the last 23 years been working with accountants to help them develop their skills and work towards becoming a business coach. So, Peter, thanks very much for coming. Great to see you.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier about the work that you've been doing, and we'll come on to that. But the journey that a lot of the accountants that we meet, not all of them, but a lot of them are working toward this advisor notion. It would be great, just really basic for you. You know, what is the work of an advisor?
Good question. Because I think the problem in the marketplace is there's lots of accountancy firms moving into advisory, but they're almost becoming CFO advisors. So they're calling themselves advisors, but they're really doing CFO work. And a business advisor doesn't just look at the financial metrics of a business. A business advisor needs to have a look broadly at everything else that's going on. So they need to have a look at the holistic, the big picture. And I think that's the message sort of we're sending out to the accountancy firms that we work with, that the challenge for them is to broaden their skills and broaden what they're doing with the business. And you know, the funny thing is, Andy, that most accountancy and bookkeeper firms are already doing it. If you ask, you know, most of the people we come across, when they start thinking of what their advisory model is going to look like, they start to think it's hard. You know, I don't know how to do it. You know, they get this procrastination of, you know, what am I going to do and how's it going to work? And they shift back to that financial, conversations about financial. But most of the fun that they have with clients is engaging them like we are now. You know, what's happening in the business? What's holding you back? And they're the sort of conversations we teach business advisors and accountants to have, because if we can teach an accountancy firm to go through a discovery program, so and the trouble is you're not born to be an advisor. So most of these accountants have to move into it. They have to build their skill set. So we start off with step one, which is just having a conversation with a client and just asking them questions like, where are you now? Where does the business want to go to? What's holding you back? You know? And one of the things that we work on is with the business owner is just trying to give them time and space. So the problem is that most business owners are firefighting, they've got things on, they're absolutely lousy at accountability. So if we can teach an accountancy firm to actually go into a client and say, what's holding you back? Why haven't you achieved your goals? And then to set up this accountability platform, you know? And you know what an accountability platform is? It's a monthly meeting. It's a monthly meeting like a coach. So if you think of the biggest tip that we can provide is for an advisor, for an accountant, whether they're a business coach or an accountant or a bookkeeper, to think of themselves like they're a sports coach. And you know what sports coaches ask? You know? So if you think about it, when I was trying to teach my daughter how to go faster in a 100-metre sprint, right? So the first thing I said is, what's your goal? And she said, I want to run it in 11 seconds. I said, well, that's great. Okay, you want to run in 11 seconds. Now, if I just said to her, if I got together once a month with her and said, did you achieve 11 seconds? No. Okay, well, let's try harder. And then even if I asked, what did you do? And they were sort of just general steps, it's not going to help. But if I actually put and break down the science of a sprint to the starting. So how many times did you practice your start? How many times did you practice the middle of a race? How many times did you practice the end part? So what we do is we boil down the time is the end point. What was your diet? How many training sessions did you have? Is all the things in between. So with a business, if you look at the top, it's about sales and profit. That's what we want to achieve for any business owner. What a good business advisor needs to do is to work out, well, for you to achieve where your goals are, what do you need to do?
So what you're saying is, working as an advisor, accountants really need to step away from purely looking at the finances and be much more holistic.
Absolutely.
So I think that's one of those things that's kind of easier said than done. I mean, we've seen accountants struggle to kind of make that first leap. What does hold people back, and how do you kind of encourage someone to make that first leap away from just the finances?
Well, I mean, we can talk about all the sorts of things from setting the infrastructure to practice up and all the rest, but if we just boil it down to the first one, the first and most important thing is building confidence in that accountant. So first of all, understanding, when you call yourself a business advisor, you're not a CFO. It's a mindset. So you've got to have the mindset that you're there to help.
Do you think that the name is part of the problem? The business advisor you don't describe them as advisors, you call them coaches. Is that a fundamental part of it?
Well, no, I think, and we've been around for 28 years. So we started our own consultancy firm, and then moved it into a coaching firm, and then moved it into an advisory, and then we started specialising in. I'll tell you, there's another great opportunity, which is talking to business owners about when they're going to exit the business, and that's another huge advisory area. So we've been moving and broadening in that space. I think business advisor is a good term. I just think at the moment that the accountancy firms, the wealth planners, they're thinking that an advisor is not as holistic as what it is. So there's nothing wrong with the term. I just think it's how people are interpreting the term in what they're doing with business owners.
Right, fascinating stuff. So tell me more about the succession planning.
That's one.
That was a brilliant way of getting into this. And tell me more about that.
Well, the most important part about that is if you're thinking of an advisory firm, what are you going to have a conversation with about a business owner? Are you going to be a profit improvement, value enhancement, or what are you going to do? One of the best questions any accountancy firm can ask their client is, have you thought of exiting or selling your business, and when? Because the problem is, at the moment, there's a huge opportunity with baby boomers. Over 50% of all baby boomers are over the age of 55. And 50 to 90% of personal wealth is tied up in the business. So that means that when they're looking at retiring, if they haven't got a plan to build the value of the business, if they're not ready to sell at the time of exit, then the value of the business substantially deteriorates, or they mightn't be able to sell it. So and we talked before about accountancy firms, whether you're an accountancy firm or a business owner, you need to have a plan. And if you have a plan, there are three things you need to have. First is a discussion on business value readiness. The second is a discussion on your personal wellness. So in a survey, 75% of business owners that exited a business with a purpose to retire, 12 months after they'd exited, they were interviewed, and 7 out of 10 of them profoundly regretted the decision to exit. So that means that we're not discussing with a business owner the repercussions to the personal side. And then the other side, which is so good for accountants, is guess what else we talk about? What's the point of selling your business at that value if you only get that much net proceeds because you haven't got good tax planning? Or what's the point of selling at that level because you haven't had good, sort of wealth advice, if you haven't got good legal advice. So when you start talking about exit and succession, there is a whole lot of other services that you can refer work to. It's like a feeding frenzy for advisors. So not only are you doing a great thing, you're helping your business owners to drive towards that dream, but you've also got the best amount of income coming in from all these referral services. It's just a fantastic opportunity.
Yeah, it's kind of the perfect storm, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
That's great. Yeah. That fantastic bit of insight there. Just to touch on, you work with I don't know how many advisors. It must be hundreds and hundreds. Yep. In your time.
We've sold our software, so we've got software and processes that we go through. We've sold to over 60,000 small to medium-sized businesses, and we've sold to over 20,000 business advisors over the years. Yeah.
And what kind of revenues are they making? Just give us a sense of.
Well, this is interesting. Yeah. So so if we look at a typical sort of and let's look at a coaching model, because the accountant's revenue is so mixed with what's lumped in with it as well. But if we look at pure coaching, like a business coach, one of those independents that comes in, typically they will earn between $1,000 to $5,000 per month for a monthly advisory board meeting. Per client. Right. So that means they're earning somewhere between $20,000 to $60,000 per annum per client. And the interesting part, and the message that we're sending across to accountancy firms is, who all see this as a new area, and they're all very nervous about it, and how do we charge on value and all the rest. Someone like, I use an example of Greg, a typical business coach. Greg goes and charges $2,500 a month. He has typically between 4 to 10 clients. Now, Greg charges out? What percentage of billable hours do you think Greg charges out as a business coach? Do you say about 80, 70?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, no, 20, about 20%. So the thing is that if Greg charges out only 20% of his hours, he's only got 4 to 10 clients, then there's got to be a mindset on, you've got to boil it down to how many clients are you going to have, how much do you want to earn? Greg wants to earn 250 grand a year, so therefore I've got 10 clients, each client has to net me 25k in revenue or whatever. So what you'll do is build it back. So this accountants come from a world of an hourly rate, and I know we hear it all the time, but this profession is built on value and value-based pricing. And there's already, do you know how many business coaches, non-accountancy firms in the US at the moment?
I wouldn't know.
Surprise you to hear, 55,000 of them. All around the US, all charging in those sort of value-based pricing.
For them, it's natural. I imagine when they started, that was their first model.
Well, that was their first model, but most of them are exactly like the accountants when they start off. How am I going to charge? And how am I going to set it up? What's the model look like? And that's why you're not born to become. You're not born into advisory. You're not naturally. You don't come out and you're automatically a great advisor. Anything takes time and it takes confidence. So the starting point for any practice is for that accountancy firm to just start having conversations about non-financial stuff, having that client discovery meeting and moving them down. And then the number one reason for lack of success of business owners is lack of strategy execution. In other words, they don't get things done. So the biggest gift that any accountancy firm can provide to their client is to set up an accountability track. Just get together once a month. And if you're underconfident to start off with, charge at a lower rate. And then as you build your confidence, you build your rates and you build the value behind it.
Great advice. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Peter, thank you so much. It's been great to talk to you.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much. Some great advice there. So from what we're hearing, it's going to be really important for if you're an accountant to start thinking beyond the numbers, to start getting more holistic in the questions and the advice that you're giving. You've been with Andy North at Accounting Web and Peter Hickey from Mouse and the Right Network Studio.